Hey everyone, it's Saoirse, and today we are going to talk about The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is by Suzanne Collins, and it was published in 2020, which is, oh, my kitten's playing with the camera. This is a full decade after the Hunger Games trilogy finished. Mockingjay was published in 2010, so that was around end of middle school to mid-high school for me. So it's one of those like nostalgia bombs that happens. I really loved the original trilogy and the movies, and I was excited to get back into this world, and now he's gonna bite my foot. Sorry for the chaotic opening. He's down there going absolutely wild. So, anyway, I don't know why I waited a few years to read this. I guess I just didn't get around to it, and then the movie's coming out next month, so I thought, perfect timing. I always like to read the book before I see the movie, like 99% of cases. So I'm going to read you the flap, and then we'll get into it. Ambition will fuel him, competition will drive him, but power has its price. This is a prequel, by the way. It is the morning of the reaping that will kick off the 10th annual Hunger Games. In the capital, 18-year-old Coriolanus Snow is preparing for his one shot at glory as a mentor in the games. The once mighty House of Snow has fallen on hard times, its fate hanging on the slender chance that Coriolanus will be able to outcharm, outwit, and outmaneuver his fellow students to mentor the winning tribute. The odds are against him. He's been given the humiliating assignment of mentoring the female tribute from District 12, the lowest of the low. Their fates are now completely intertwined. Every choice Coriolanus makes could lead to favor or failure. Triumph or ruin. Inside the arena, it will be a fight to the death. Outside the arena, Coriolanus starts to feel for his doomed tribute, and must weigh his need to follow the rules against his desire to survive no matter what it takes. Okay, so there's gonna be spoilers in this video. I don't really think I'm not really into talking about stuff vaguely, because then we can't get into it. There's gonna be a lot of spoilers, and there are some pretty wacky twists in this book. First, I gotta say about the names. So, I'm gonna probably call him Corio because I can't just keep saying Coriolanus over and over. I can't do it. But if you are like a Shakespeare person like me, then you knew in the original Hunger Games that his name comes from a Shakespeare play. So I just looked up a little background. And Coriolanus is the name given to a Roman general after his military feats against the Volscians at Corioli. Following his success, he seeks to be consul, but his disdain for the plebeians and mutual hostility with the tribunes leads to his banishment from Rome. In exile, he presents himself to the Volscians, then leads them against Rome. After he relents and agrees to a peace with Rome, he is killed by his previous Volscian allies. Doesn't that sound like pretty much exactly his trajectory in this story from the prequel through the trilogy? Which is just like, if everybody knew the background of these names, it would kind of like ruin the story, especially Sejanus. So I loved Sejanus in this book. Really liked this character, and yeah, we're talking about spoilers, so he ends up being hanged for treason. Well, guess where his name comes from? A Roman soldier, friend, and confidant of the Roman Emperor Tiberius. Sejanus rose to power as prefect of the Praetorian Guard, of which he was commander from AD 14 until his execution for treason in AD 31. So, like, if I had known my Roman history a little bit more, and I do think about the Roman Empire almost daily, then I would have seen his name pop up at the beginning of the book and gone, oh, this guy's he's gonna die for treason, and he did. And so I'm just like, that's a clever, I like all the clever names in these books. You know, she puts a lot of thought into naming, and naming is such a fun part of writing, and I always put intention into characters' names and look up their meaning, and I like how all the tributes from the districts, like we get to see this list several times, but all the tributes have names that are sort of related to the industry in their district. Oh, that one just showed the mentors, but anyway, we get to see this list over and over. I will say, this is kind of 3 books in one, and it is a little bit longer than it needs to be. It is 517 pages. It could have been 400, could have been 350 with a little more cutting, but it really is because it's separated into the, what's the first one? The Mentor, the Prize, and the Peacekeeper. So it's really like 3 books, and so it's kind of surprising that, you know, most of the time, especially with films, now it's this huge thing to like make trilogies out of one bit of source material, The Hobbit, and it's not necessary. So I like that it's just a standalone book, and we didn't have to get a whole trilogy to like get all the money out of it as possible. But because of that, it does drag in places, and that won't bother you if you're just like along for the ride and want to be immersed in this world. And eventually, probably after part 1, I started getting more invested in it. So I'm going to pull out some quotes here that really show us the villain origin story, which is what this is. It makes it kind of hard too. Now, it's written in 3rd person, not 1st person, so it's a little bit easier to cope with the fact that we know we're reading about somebody that's going to become pretty evil. Hello, darling, I love you. But it is tough following a character along his journey when, like, you want to root for him because he's this 18-year-old kid who seemingly has feelings for this girl, and, like, she has feelings for him, and, oh, isn't that nice? He's trying to save her from death in the arena. But it takes such a dark turn, and you're like, oh, I still have to keep following this guy while he's getting more and more horrendous. But it is a really well-crafted decline. So let's look at some of these. Forgetting could lead to complacency, and then they'd all be back at square one. So he's saying they need to witness the Hunger Games to keep the war fresh in their minds. That's the sort of the first sign that's on page 13, that his thought process is going to be all about control. And there's the 3 C's in this book: control, chaos, and contract. And that's a recurring theme in here, how he sort of grapples with these things. And because, like, he, you know, it's not like he's immune to love. He has his cousin Tigress, who he loves, his grandmother, he loved his mother, and now he says he's in love with Lucy Gray, who is the tribute that he's mentoring. Well, how can he reconcile that with living in a world where people, if they are left to their own devices, they just destroy each other, which is what he comes to believe. At our very core, we are animals, and we will tear each other apart for our survival. So he just, I think, loses touch with any sort of humanity, or any of his goodness that does exist, I think, in him intrinsically. He is a product of war and disinterest from his father, and when he grows up with such scarcity and knows that he comes from such a noble background and that he should have everything he wants in life, but he doesn't, and it's all been taken away. It's very easy for him to blame the rebels and everybody in the districts for taking this away from him because the capital suffered so much during the war. So you just really see throughout this how he connects the dots to, like, his final answer being, yes, we have to continue the Hunger Games. Okay, so after Clemencia gets attacked by the snakes because of Dr. Gall, who is completely nuts, he thinks, if the people who were supposed to protect you played so fast and loose with your life, then how did you survive? And not by trusting them, that was for sure. And if you couldn't trust them, who could you trust? All bets were off. So trust is a big theme in this book too, because Lucy Gray says it's more important even than love. And he's realizing early on that he can't trust anyone. And so then in turn becomes very untrustworthy himself, because he's being shown, you know, this is just how it is. This is how we treat each other. So there's a lot of mentions of him thinking that Lucy Gray belongs to him. He adjusted a hot pink rosebud in her hair. It matched the one on his lapel, just in case anyone needed a reminder of who Lucy Gray belonged to. So a lot of control and ownership. Here he says, his girl, his. Here in the capital, it was a given that Lucy Gray belonged to him, as if she'd had no life before her name was called out at the reaping. So he's really upset that she sings this song where she talks about a previous lover, because he's like, wait, you existed before you appeared before my eyes? I didn't make you exist, which is also a very, like, toxic masculinity sort of theme thrown in here. Like, a woman has no autonomy at all, and you wonder where exactly he learned this. There are some mentions of his childhood. His dad was terrible person. I think it's alluded to that he's the reason, well no, it's actually explicit in the end that he's the reason the Hunger Games exists, because his father was friends with Dean Highbottom, and they, like, worked on a school project together about how do we keep people from, like, having an uprising again, and he pushed Highbottom to like publish this idea for the Hunger Games. Anyway, so there's a lot of talk in a very vague way about sex work. Tigress's rebuke shocked him, but less than her alluding to behavior that might be considered a disgrace. What had she done? Because if she'd done it to protect him. And also in Lucy Gray's song, she kind of alludes to it, and then he says, did he want to know the details? No, the truth was he did not. So he has this real disgust with sex work, and again, I think he, like, not only is he just a bad person, but I think he's really a misogynist, and he has this disgust with sex work when it is very likely the thing that fed his family during the war, and he didn't know that at the time as a child. Now he's looking at his cousin like, did you really do those things? And it's like, yeah, dude, that's how you were able to survive, so have a little respect. And the same for Lucy Gray, like, that's what put food on the table, and that's how she helped her family survive. So he's just got this nasty little brain that keeps showing itself more and more throughout the book, and I like the command that she has over this storytelling, because at the beginning you really are on his side for a little bit. You're like, oh, this poor guy in his nasty shirt, and, like, he just, you know, if he just had a nice shirt, poor boy. But then you really see his true character come out, and it's a shame. As to the noble ideas of the capital, did they really believe that? What he desired had little to do with nobility and everything to do with being in control. Not that he didn't have a strong moral code, certainly he did. So here's just one of the first mentions of control. He doesn't really care about, like, he's saying he doesn't care about the parades after the war, shallow, and he really just wants to get to the bottom line, which is, like, controlling the districts, and he's obsessed with keeping chaos at bay and having an order to everything. And this kind of attitude, it can often come from a traumatic childhood in which you feel like you have no control over anything, which certainly was the case. You know, he lost both of his parents at a young age during the war, and was never able to, like, help his family get food, and he has to watch other people cannibalize each other, and his whole world felt completely out of control, and now he's about to lose his ancestral home. So rather than, like, work toward the good and, like, making things better for everybody, including himself, he's like, let's just stamp them all down and control it all, and I have to be the one who's in power at all costs. Like, it has to be me. Okay, so now things start to get really, really gross when the Hunger Games start, and he's getting fed during the games. It says a real dinner appeared for the talent, which made Coriolanus feel important and right at the center of things. The pork chops and potatoes were certainly better fare than what they had at home. Another reason for wanting Lucy Gray to stay alive. Oh, he wants her to stay alive, so He can eat and feel important. I mean, that says it all. It's lines like that where you're like, oh, I don't think I can support you anymore. Because, like, you know, we naturally want to root for a romance. And so I've certainly found myself doing that. And then you realize, oh, this is just not the right romance for Lucy Gray because she deserves better than this. So he's talking about Clemencia and the snakes, and so he's put the handkerchief into the snake cage so that Lucy Gray's scent is on the snakes and they don't kill her. He'd done it so they would not bite her as they had Clemencia, so they would not kill her because he cared about her. Because he cared about her, or because he wanted her to win the Hunger Games so that he could secure the Plinth Prize. If it was the latter and he cheated to win, if it was the latter, he had cheated to win, and that was that. So that's what matters to him, is like his moral code. Did he cheat? Because if he was doing it because he wanted the prize, then it's cheating. But if he was doing it for this like made up reason, he's gaslighting himself into believing that he loves Lucy Gray, then it's like a matter of the heart. The boy's falling apart. So he's really messed up about the fact that he put this handkerchief in the cage. What awaited him farther down that slope if he was unable to stop his descent? What else might he be capable of? Well, that was it. It stopped now. If he didn't have honor, he had nothing. No more deception, no more shady strategies, no more rationalization. From now on, he'd live honestly, and if he ended up as a beggar, at least he would be a decent one. So, the thing is, he's not very honest. As we will see with how he completely betrays Janus by recording him with the Jabberjay. So he does this very special thing of picking and choosing when he's going to be honest. And we all know, I mean, this is a whole thing with ethics. I can't remember, is this Deontology, where there are certain rules in society and we just have to follow them and that's how you live a good and moral life? That might be Deontology. Or is it like, I can't remember who said this, but the trolley problem, where do you do what is best for the greater amount of people, or do you follow your like moral code? Like, you know, the trolley's coming and you can either let it hit 6 people, or you can make the decision to alter what's happening, turn the course and hit 1 person. What do you do? So there's a lot of interesting ethical points in this book which I hadn't really thought about until now. I like that. Okay. So when he gets to District 12, now he's a peacekeeper because he's cheated in the game, so he's been sent to District 12. He decides to keep his relationship with Lucy Gray private. It says, whispering through the fence might encourage rumors that he was a rebel sympathizer, or even worse, a spy. So it's really selfishly that he wants to keep her a secret. It's to protect himself. And then this is just ridiculous. They're going to where Lucy Gray lives for the first time, and Coriolanus is just, he's so weak. He is like, oh, it's too hot, and I don't want to walk that far, and he trudged along thinking with fondness of his bunk and remembering that Sunday meant fried bologna and potatoes. Maybe he was not cut out to be a lover. Maybe he was more of a loner at heart. Coriolanus Snow, more loner than lover. I mean, if you're going to see this gorgeous girl that you're in love with, and you're thinking about how you resent her because you want your bologna and potatoes and you just don't feel like walking this far, yeah, chances are you're not cut out for love. And then, oh my gosh, okay, who got goosebumps when they read this part? When Lucy Gray's sitting in the meadow playing guitar and like writing this song. And it's the hanging tree, and you're just like, I can see Jennifer Lawrence and I can hear the song from the movie, and that was so cool. It was such a cool reveal to realize that Lucy Gray is the one who wrote, I have goosebumps right now, who wrote the song that Katniss sings in the Hunger Games. Oh, whoa, so cool. And it's like, you know, she wrote this series more than a decade ago. Was she thinking about a prequel in the future where she would, like, tell us the origin of things like that song, or was the song just like something that she wrote and thought fit with the story? and now she's like, oh crap, it does work, I can make this work. It's probably that, but I think that's really cool either way. Like, that must be such a cool thing as a writer, to find out that the things you wrote actually work in the history of the world when you explore it further. Love it. Where are we? Oh, this is terrible. Lucy Gray says, "You're mine and I'm yours. It's written in the stars." And he says he thinks he does not believe in celestial writings. She did, and that would be enough to guarantee her loyalty. Not that his own loyalty was in question. If he hadn't fallen in love with any of the girls in the capital, it was unlikely District 12 could offer much else in the way of temptation. Oh, it's like, ew, what a romantic. You know, like, there's nothing else really going on here, so sure, I won't cheat on you. Loser. Okay. He felt trapped here on base while she could freely roam the night. In some ways, it had been better to have her locked up in the capital, where he always had a general idea of what she was doing. Control, control, control. He would rather have her in the arena fighting for her life, being very traumatized at every moment, because then at least he knows where she is and he can keep her under control. Oh my god, this part where he says, "We should kill them all," about the Mockingjays. It's like, something just snapped in that boy. And I did feel like it kind of happened a little bit fast, and I wanted a little more explanation of why does he hate them so much. But you're like, oh, you're gonna hate another Mockingjay in the future. Just wait till Katniss Everdeen steps on stage. Speaking of Katniss, this part was so cool too. Clerk Carmine brought Lucy Gray a plant he'd uprooted from the lake with pointy leaves and small white flowers. Hey, you found some Katniss. And that's my alarm again. I'm sorry, guys. You found some Katniss. So I'm like, oh, she said it. She said Katniss. She said the name. So cool. And I did not remember that Katniss was a plant. Did we know that? I think that must have been in the original. Here he says, this is after he kills Mayfair. He'd felt less emotional than when he'd killed Bobbin, or perhaps the second killing was just easier than the first. At any rate, he knew that he'd shoot her again if he had to do it all over, and somehow that supported the rightness of his actions. So people do this thing. This is his decline, by the way, we're seeing very sharply happening, and when you start justifying what you've done by saying, like, I'm just gonna double down on the horrible things, because if I double down and I do them again and again, it must be right, because why would I be doing it again? It's totally justified. Yeah, which we see happen a lot in the real world. So then he thinks he's getting caught, and he's talking to Commander Hoff, and Hoff says, so he didn't mention getting them guns? Guns? Not that I know of. How would he get guns? Coriolanus was beginning to enjoy himself a bit. So he is a lunatic. He is having fun manipulating this situation when just a minute ago he was crapping himself, terrified that he was about to be hanged for treason. And now he's having fun, and he's having fun talking about a thing where, like, a situation where he murdered a girl, mainly because I think he's jealous of his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. It's all just like, bro, really? So you just see him falling apart more and more, and it's really working. And here we have his transformation is complete. The villain is born at this part right here, after he has hunted Lucy Gray with the intention of killing her so that his secret doesn't get out. He comes back to base, and he's all wet, and so it says the lake water had reduced his mother's rose-scented powder to a nasty paste, and he threw the whole thing in the trash. The photos stuck together and shredded when he tried to separate them, so they went the way of the powder. Only the compass had survived the outing. So he gets rid of his family photos, okay, any connection he had to love, and he gets rid of his mother's powder. That was his thing, that was his comfort item. He loved his mother. In the trash. What's left? The compass from his father, the moral compass from his father. Symbolism, symbolism, symbolism. He is now going to follow in his father's footsteps. I have goosebumps. My only question is, what happened to Lucy Gray? Did she escape? I kind of thought maybe she's Katniss's grandmother or something. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. I can't wait to see the movie. Maybe we'll talk about that. I don't know. In the end, I really liked it. It was just a bit long. Maybe I hope there's like more stories from this world. It's great, and well done, Suzanne Collins. Okay, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.